All right, good morning, Bismarck Mandan. Dave Flohr here, one of the experts of the Dakota Housing Network, as we so claim we are anyway. As always, Jim Walsh on the board.
Hello.
How you doing today, Jim?
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right, nice day out.
Not too bad. Good day for the first day of school.
Yeah, pretty good. It was good. It was first day of school. Everybody be careful where you drive.
Yes, watch out for them.
Yeah, and Jim?
Yeah.
We have an episode here of a dumb guy. Usually it's two dumb guys asking a smart person questions.
Well, that applies today, I think.
Today it's a dumb guy because it's just me. Greg
Yeah.
and Joe aren't here.
Right.
Or Brian, but we have a smart person in the studio.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a guest today, folks. Jennifer Henderson.
Yay.
From North Dakota Housing. Who else? She works with me, so I know her. And
Good morning.
I coerced her into coming on here today. Kinda, not really.
I don't think you had to try too hard.
I just asked you. So anyway, Jennifer is the Director of Planning and Development at North Dakota Housing, and we're going to talk about like tiny houses and how that's a solution for certain things. And there is some kind of study that was out, and right?
A housing needs study. Yep.
All right. So
yeah.
okay.
Lots
so anyway,
of
Jim,
stuff.
the intelligence quota has gone way up on the show, which is always a good thing, and it's a much better looking studio than if it was just you and me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So there we go. Okay, interest rates. They hit their low for 2017, Jen.
Finally.
Yeah. 10-year Treasury yield fell 6 basis points this past week amid concerns over lagging inflation. We're not getting inflated in the economy like the Fed is expecting it to, or wants it to, I guess. 30-year mortgage rate also declined for the fourth consecutive week, dropping 3 basis points to a new year-to-date low of 3.86%. So we cracked back under 4% here in the last month or so. Last year, the 30-year fixed rate was at 3.43 a year ago at this time. So
it's actually a little higher.
So
than
we're
last
higher
year.
than that.
Interesting.
So the 15-year was at 2.74 last year. This week it was at 3.16. So I would say lock your interest rates. If you're thinking about it, might as well call your loan officer and lock your interest rates, et cetera. And loan officers should call their customers and lock.
Get them locked in.
Yeah, if they can.
It's an excellent rate.
Yeah. So that's all good. Interest rates, I just don't think they're going anywhere. They're right now, if you want to keep track of this, the 10-year Treasury overnight was sitting at about 2.18, and that's kind of a magic level. And they think now it's like this new ceiling on the 10-year Treasury. So now the next thing they're looking for is if it gets below 2.16 for 3-4 days or something, then we'll probably start seeing lower interest rates again. Right now, lenders probably aren't repricing their rates yet based on this, but if it cracks that next level and goes below that and stays there, then we'll see a drop in rates again. So it's all good.
It is.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple things with you, and then whatever else we want to discuss, because we're open, we're flexible here on the Dakota Housing Network.
Well, what happened today? Where's today something exciting happened?
Oh, that's Greg. Greg always comes up with a thing. I'll do it on the break.
Like we're missing something. Yeah.
I'll do it on the break. I'll look on my phone. That's the great thing. That is one great thing about today's world. Is you can just look up facts.
Absolutely.
On the spot.
Google.
Don't have to worry about getting an encyclopedia out or anything.
Sacco and Vanzetti were executed.
Okay, there we go. Jim's got it. Okay.
Say that again?
Oh, and Mount Vesuvius blew its top.
Oh, my goodness. That was a long time ago.
And all them people got whatever.
That was a long time ago. When was that?
79 AD.
Okay, well, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
I was not born yet, Jen.
Neither was I.
Okay. All right, that's good. All right, so let's talk about tiny houses. What have you've got a thing here talking about tiny houses, and what is it with tiny houses? Greg talked about this one time, but more on the homeownership side.
On the homeownership? Well, there's talk about cuts to HUD, who has a lot of housing subsidy as far as providing rental subsidy and all kinds of other programs, and those cuts it's unnerving a little bit because there's a lot of need in the United States, a lot of low-income households, and so thinking about different solutions with less money, and one of them is the thought process of using tiny home developments for opportunities to house homeless.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could make for a really effective method if it's done in the right way. You can take a infill lot possibly that doesn't really have a use and put 10 tiny homes on there and be able to house people.
Because what's the construction costs compared to, if you put up a big structure, a multi-family structure, what's the costs of that these days? Which is, you're involved in that a lot.
Absolutely. So in this study here that they were talking about the tiny homes, and they were building 16 by 20 foot houses. So they're small.
They're tiny.
They're tiny.
Okay.
And each house had a cost of about $10,000 to build.
Okay.
That's absolutely a fraction of the cost of construction. You're seeing unit cost per door of $120,000.
If you put up a 24 unit.
24 unit.
building.
Yep. Cost $120,000 plus for a door per door.
So now if you're going to do this in North Dakota, build a tiny house for $10,000, I'm assuming it's not going to cost that much. It's going to cost more. I would
think that it's going to cost more.
That's without infrastructure, water, sewer lines.
And that's why you think about solutions of using infill, because the infrastructure is already there. So there isn't a lot that needs to be done except for to bring the utilities on site.
Yeah,
completely.
You just need to split them up and give them to each of the homes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say, at most, I think it could be done for $20,000, which is still a lot cheaper.
So you're compared to 100 and how many per door unit you're saying?
120,000 is cheap.
120,000. So you're saving, even if you saved half of that.
Absolutely.
You'd be way ahead.
Yes.
We'd be way ahead. That's interesting. Is anybody doing this anywhere?
They are doing it in communities in Seattle. They have looked at it. In New York, they've looked at doing that. And so I think there's going to be more and more successful examples, and that'll help drive the thought process here in North Dakota.
Okay. What else about them? What's the benefit to it? Anything else?
Well, if it's done right, you could have supportive services come. And if you have 10 of these homes in one area, a caseworker can help 10 people pretty easily rather than, in different areas. So that could be one benefit is making it easier for case management and services to help these people.
So when you say, a caseworker could, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah.
Oftentimes homelessness is in effect of some sort of an addiction or a mental health issue. And so oftentimes these folks need help with addiction counseling, making sure they're taking medication for their mental illness, being checked on. Sometimes the providers are just helping them think about how to be a citizen. So yeah.
No, and locally in Bismarck, there's some issues going on right now with homeless because Ruth Myers has said they want to sell where the homeless shelter's at and that. So maybe we could even get into that a little bit and talk how this could help something like that. So
absolutely.
Okay, Jim, is kicking us off. We're doing
Back to School theme.
Back to School. There we go. Okay.
Steely Dan.
That's the day. Steely Dan. We'll see you. We'll be right back on the Dakota Housing Network.
Right Now 64.
Here's Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons on Super Talk 1270.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule.
All right. Back to school theme today. Chuck Berry can't get any better than that. All right. Back here on the Dakota Housing Network, Dave Flohr and Jim Walsh, along with our guest host today, Jennifer Henderson from North Dakota Housing Planning and Development Director. We were talking about tiny houses, Jennifer, and how that could be a solution for a lot of housing problems, possibly. We were talking about use them for homeless. In place of having a big shelter, you could use them for homeless units, infill lots within a city.
Yep.
They're doing this out in Seattle. Seattle, is that strictly for the homeless that they're doing it out there?
No, I
Okay.
think there's others. You know, there seems to be a tiny house movement.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people buying them to live in them as
Yep.
a single family house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we were talking about the cost. To build, like you said, 16 by 20, it was $10,000, and then obviously if you want to do something bigger, it's going to cost
A
more.
little bit more, yeah.
You do have the infrastructure, the water, sewer lines, and all that stuff that's got to be put in, a foundation of some type
Yes.
that would be needed. So the cost isn't quite the 10,000 or whatever, but when you compare that to what it costs to build a multifamily building per unit, you said it was like
Significantly,
$120,000.
$120,000 plus, yeah.
So if you could do these tiny houses for something, half of that cost, you're already money ahead.
You are money ahead, yep.
And these, we were talking about, possibility as an answer for some of the homeless, would provide privacy for people, a little bit more of it's your space type of thing.
And I would think, it's possible that there would be less maintenance too,
Yeah,
because there's less common area that
Yeah.
to have an upkeep to.
Yeah.
Even if you keep, you'd keep for housing the homeless. Obviously, you'd keep it as a rental opportunity, but I think it would be a good way for people to start out and learn how to take care of their own space.
Yeah, yeah. And how about just as a replacement for some of the apartment buildings that go up, just to put something like this up? I mean, is there, what would the issues be? Is it not easy to, is it not as easy to upkeep for, say if a developer wanted to do this and rent these out?
Well, I think one thing is it would be a lower density than an apartment complex would be. So you're not going to be able to make as much money because there's less renters for that price. So there is that, I would think. But it's just another solution that could work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it something for communities to encourage something like this? I mean, if there is some empty lots around a community, would it be good, instead of putting up one house, put up 3 of these homes or something? I don't know, what would make more sense, and then the city, they become rentals.
I think it's
versus
important for
ownership.
the city to encourage a mixed
Yeah.
development. And one thing about the tiny home situation, like I said, you could set it up, it can become a community. And oftentimes people who need support, peer support is extremely important, and going through a recovery process together can be very helpful, and you can rely on each other to get through crises. And so I think that's, putting those people in a space to help each other through that could be a really good solution.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Any ideas and stuff are good, and it's something to consider, because we talked about Ruth Myers just for the break, and how they've decided, for, I assume, some financial reasons and other reasons, they've decided they want to sell the shelter in town. And we looked it up. They house anywhere between, was it
35 and 70
35 to 70 people each night.
homeless men. It's
Homeless
a
men
men's
each
shelter.
night. So, that goes away if nobody comes in and fills that void. That goes away. That's a lot of people that have nowhere to go at night.
Yeah, it's going to be a significant loss for a community the size of Bismarck, Mandan. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think they're looking, is there somebody else that could step in and take it over? That sort of thing, right?
I know that Missouri Valley Homeless Coalition and other advocates have been out there and, having discussions about what the solution is going to be.
And like Fargo, I think you're aware of some of this stuff. Fargo has a lot. They've done a lot to address this.
They have,
issues of
yeah.
homeless.
They
and they've done
number of
different
different
things, right?
Yeah.
What have they done out there?
Well, there's a couple different shelters. One that's a sober shelter, and one that allows some alcohol in there, so they can
Okay.
try to deal with their addiction after they get there. And so I think that's important. Fargo has the Cooper House, which is a permanent supportive housing project, which it's got 42 single bedroom units. It has 24-hour staffing, and it provides homeless folks with a permanent shelter and helps them through a recovery process as they get there. So it's really a housing first model, and I don't know. It's housing first is really the thought process of get a roof over someone's head, and then they can focus on other issues. But if you are worried about where you're going to sleep, it's really challenging to make sure you're taking any medication that you might need. So
Okay.
yeah.
And then there's I think there was an individual that he's bought some homes around Fargo, and
Yes, I just read about
like
that.
2 to 3 people can stay in them per night, because there's codes on how many unrelated in Fargo. Anyway, there's codes about how many unrelated people can live in a home, I think, or something. But this guy is the guy that was addicted.
He has been incarcerated, and he had addiction problems, and he was given a second chance by an employer, and is trying to give back. And so, yes, it's called the F5 project.
There he is.
Yeah, and he buys single family homes and then allows convicted felons to stay there.
Okay.
And that's one of the hardest populations to find housing for, is if you have any kind of a criminal conviction, felony. It's often that landlords will turn you away. And so he's trying to make a difference and give people a second chance. And it was interesting because, were upset because I don't think they did a very good job of letting neighbors know what was going on. And so then it was that surprise factor. And so there is a little bit of NIMBYism, not in my backyard, that occurred. But I think they're working through.
Yeah, and he had somebody died in one of the houses recently.
Somebody did overdose, and and that's.
And I think I read he was very surprised because this was a good. He said it was a good guy, and he relapsed and unfortunately passed away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think addiction and recovery is very challenging, and there's people who have relapses, and you hope that they can get through that crisis.
But having the roof over your head helps a lot.
It helps you to be able to go to meetings and get help. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
a community kind of decide, do you want people on the street versus in a, with a roof over their head somewhere? It's tough. It's tough to find the appropriate places, if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah. You have a family and I have a family, and of course we would be concerned of our neighbors, but then you also need to realize that if they're housed, they're not on the street, and that's not a bad thing either.
Okay. So anyway, tiny houses might be a solution.
to
think about. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, what else were we going to discuss? You had a report that came out about
the worst
case.
needs.
Okay.
Housing needs.
So who did this report? We'll
HUD.
kind of lead into this before our next break here.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
okay.
HUD released a report called the Worst Case Housing Needs Study.
Okay.
And it's an annual study that they do, and it talks about that folks that have the worst needs, and that means that they are cost burdened, and or living in a housing that is inadequate. And the numbers are going up.
Okay. And did they do it state by state, or
It's nationally.
so it's a national?
It's a national study. Yeah.
report. Okay.
Yeah.
So-
but there isn't any state that doesn't have increases in numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so worst case housing needs. Okay. So what is that? Say again what that means.
Okay. What it means is that people with very low incomes paying more than 50% towards their housing costs.
Okay.
Affordable is considered 30%. Or the housing that they are living in is inadequate, meaning that there's not running water or, very poor maintenance. It's It's
Okay.
bad. A majority of the very low income households are just cost burdened, severely cost burdened.
Okay. So it's a national study, but they didn't break it down by state at all.
Nope.
That we
Nope.
saw. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. That would have been interesting. Okay, so Jim is telling we got to take a break.
Yeah.
All right, we're going out on, it looks like Van Halen. I think this is hot for teacher.
Whatever happened to Waldo?
Waldo, yeah, okay.
Right now, 64.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
Some loud bragger tries to put me down and says this school is great. I tell him right away, now what's the matter, buddy? Ain't you heard of my school? It's #1 in the state.
Hey, take it away. Get
So
that
be
ball
true
and
to your school.
Be true to your school today, folks. First day of school. Dave Flohr on Dakota Housing Network. Jim Walsh on the board.
Thank you.
Our encyclopedia of rock and roll knowledge.
Yeah.
He's walking also. And then we have Jennifer Henderson from North Dakota Housing. Jennifer is sad today because her little boy went to
I
kindergarten.
did have to take my baby to kindergarten.
Jennifer
today.
is
It was
sad.
Tough.
Well, she
morning.
wasn't sad. It was just emotional.
It was emotional indeed.
Your daughter is just like, okay,
Yeah,
you've been there.
I don't care.
Yeah, okay. But
Yep.
see your
Old
little
hat
boy
there.
go.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Okay. All right. Well, we hope you recover.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. But, my daughter, she's a sophomore. So it's like, okay, go to school.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so where's he going to school at?
Northridge Elementary.
Northridge Elementary.
Yes.
Okay. And that's where your daughter's at too?
No, she's at Centennial.
Ooh, okay. Big school.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, we were talking about the report put out by HUD on worst case housing needs.
Worst case housing.
So
needs.
you told us a little bit about what all that was before the break, but why don't you just run through what this report found?
Yeah. Well, the report found that despite signs of a strengthening economy, about 8.3 million households had worst case needs in 2015, which was up from the 2013 levels. The high was in 2011 at 8.48, so not too far off, really, from our worst. So what is worst case housing needs? And that's renters with very low incomes. That's the 50% of very median income. Do not receive government housing and spend more than half of their income on rent, or live in inadequate conditions, or both.
Okay.
So a majority, this report found that only 2% have housing condition issues, and the remaining 98% are just severely cost burdened.
Okay.
So they pay more than 50% of their income towards rent.
So the condition would be like no running water.
No running water, or
It's
the roof
issues
is
like that.
leaking and
Okay.
caving or whatever it might be. But
Okay.
yeah, so we don't have an inadequate housing problem. We have
The stock is pretty good.
the stock is there. It's
But-
just you can't afford it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Without assistance.
Yeah.
These
So
are-
like in North Dakota, median income in North Dakota is maybe 50, 60,000.
that sounds
I
about
think.
accurate. So 50% of that is 30s.
Let's say 30,
Mm-hmm.
and an average apartment. In
950, let's
Bismarck?
say it's gone down to
Okay.
maybe.
So
$1,000 for a 2-bedroom is still what
for
I'm
two
seeing.
bedrooms. So
yeah.
and then say if if you're on your own, pretty tough.
It is.
You're paying a lot. Yeah, so you have a roommate. You're splitting that in half, hopefully. It's probably affordable then, if you're splitting
Yeah.
it. But it can be tough. Yeah, without a doubt. So Jennifer's doing quick calculation
I was
here.
going to do a calculation.
So see what that is. Is that 30% of your income or more?
It absolutely is more,
Yeah.
unless it's
Yeah,
500.
because we're talking gross income.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
$815, I think, is what an average household can afford if they make $16 a month.
Okay.
Or an hour.
An hour.
An
Yeah.
hour wage.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
paying $1,000, that's a lot more.
That's more. Yeah.
Yep.
And when they throw these numbers out here, they're talking gross income,
Yes.
and So, to say somebody's cost burden if they're paying above 30% of their gross income, that's really, it's not taking into account a lot of things.
It
right?
isn't. Yeah. That's something that you kind of mull around, is that folks that are paying more than or 30% of their income, what kind of credit card debt do they have? Student loan debt? What about daycare? All of those can even be more significant. So I think even paying 30% can be challenging for people. And then this report indicates that there is many that are paying more than 50%.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, because, the gross income, and we do the same thing on the home ownership side. You have these ratios that are there. You say your house payment should be so much of a percentage of your gross income and your overall debt ratio and everything. And it's the same thing. Well, how much do you have left over every month is kind of more what you should go by. What's your residual income?
Right.
Is probably more important than those numbers because it's based on gross. And it just doesn't take into account so many things.
Yeah, what is the top end ratio? It is just personal loans and credit card debt, and right?
Yeah, that's all they're looking at. They're not taking into account how much are you paying for daycare. And especially what's your lifestyle like is a big one. If you want to go out and eat outside the home, go to the restaurants. That's very expensive very quickly. So if you're tight, whether you're renting a place or buying a place, you have to consider how you're spending your money these days because of the cost of housing. You have to think about how you're living.
Absolutely. Financial literacy is so important, and how to budget properly.
Yeah. And it's hard, and I think eating out is a big thing because it does cost more than cooking at home.
Yeah.
Without a question. Jim going, yeah. I agree with you, Jim. I know that.
I used to eat out a lot.
Yeah. And it's easy to get into that. Say, just...
Can be quick and convenient.
It's quick and easy, and you got time for do something else. So, so what else did the report talk about?
The report says that the impact is in all regions of the country, that West and South are more impacted than the North and East.
Okay.
And that some of the reason for the increase from 2013 is because there's an increased pressure of the number of renters out there. There's less people buying homes, more people renting, and it's causing havoc.
Okay, we're talking about millennials, aren't we?
We are.
They're not buying houses.
They're taking up rental space,
but there's a reason they're not buying houses is the inventory.
They're
so
cost
low.
burdened too, and they're cost burdened.
Yeah, it'd be hard for them to. It's hard for them to afford to buy a house, and then there's a low inventory, really across the country.
Yep.
So the house prices have gone up.
And though the demand for the rental has increased, rental prices too.
Yeah.
So it's a vicious circle.
Yeah, and we saw how that works in North Dakota. In the past 10 years, where we were at.
Yes.
We were at 10 years ago, and then we went through the whole oil business, boom.
Yep,
and
skyrocketing
how
rents.
That drove costs up, and now that's settled back down. But it seems like it never goes back down to where it was before.
I would agree.
Uptick.
Yeah, I think rents in Watford City prior to the boom were, let's say $550 a month for rent, and now a good price is $950, $850 maybe.
Yeah.
So that's
you had home prices in the Phoenixes of the world that dropped way down to the bottom, way below what they were before, and now they've slowly come back. But so there are instances where costs go way down. But okay, Jim.
When I first moved here in 2003, I was still single at the time. I got a very nice efficiency apartment in a very decent part of town for under $400 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Those days are gone.
They are, yep.
Yeah. I can't remember the first apartment I had in Bismarck. I think it was less than what you had, Jim, cost-wise.
Two-bedroom apartment that I rented in college was $385.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't exist.
Where was that, here?
No, it was in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I trying to think back in college days, rented in Grand Forks, and I can't remember what it cost, but it was pretty cheap.
Yeah.
compared to now, obviously. Back then it was a lot for a couple college kids.
Yeah. I was
But-
going to say, I think I remember struggling paying rent,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not to the point.
So this isn't, and they talk about this in the news, about how the housing is an issue nationwide. This is not. It just seems like it's not a localized. It's not regional or anything. It's
a national
every
crisis.
region
Absolutely.
It's got the same type of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the resources are limited.
Yeah.
And statewide and federally budgets are tight.
Mm-hmm.
And only 1 in 4 households that need rental assistance can receive it. So that's that's a big discrepancy, and that's why the housing needs is getting worse.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It seemed like, back, the 90s, the 80s, maybe, there was more money available to address housing issues back then. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, just like
And
we
it's
were talking,
tightened
though, the costs of housing keep increasing.
Right.
$950 is a good deal for a 2-bedroom apartment. $385 was a good deal when Jim was renting. And so, but the money hasn't increased to match that.
You're right.
So it helps less people because they're having to shovel out more to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're right. A lot of the federal programs, home, the HUD programs, basically they haven't seen increases in anything for years.
Yeah.
And so those dollars don't do as much as they did 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Now, and obviously you're going to have people that are going to argue, well, that's fine, because there's better ways to handle these problems, namely the private sector and that. But that's a big argument to take on.
Challenging. Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, we're heading into a break, and we got Gary U.S. Bond. Wow, I haven't heard him for a long time.
School is in, baby.
Yeah.
Right now, 69.
News and Views with Joel Heitkamp. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
All right, we're back on the Dakota Housing Network with the Ramones. All right. Now, the Ramones, that's the kind of music I can play. One or two chords.
Yeah.
And just bang it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's simple. All right.
Little elbow grease, you're good to go.
We're good to go. Any of the Ramones still living?
I think that one of the drummers is still around. They had 2 drummers. I think they're both still living. All the others are passed on. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Joey went first, which bummed me out to no end.
Yeah. Yeah. They were icons.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, they were unique.
They were rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. All right. Okay, we're back on the Dakota Housing Network. Dave Flohr with Jim Walsh, as always, and Jennifer Henderson, Planning and Development Director at North Dakota Housing, our guest host today. Not
I
just
did
a
get
guest.
upgraded
You
to
were a
guest host.
host.
I was proud
because
to hear
Greg
that.
and Joe aren't here, so you're the guest host. So anyway, we were talking about housing needs and all that stuff, and how the millennials are putting pressure on housing and rental housing, especially because there's no place for them to buy. They can't afford low inventory.
Payment.
They can't afford to buy what's out there, et cetera. So the millennials are just ruining everything. So there's a little report that came out in Business Insider about the fight. Psychologically scarred millennials are killing countless industries. So I think we talked about this, I think, maybe last week or a couple weeks ago too, but I think these were some new ones. But the millennials are killing casual dining chains, and we just talked about
eating out,
and
staying within your budget.
Staying within your budget. They are killing casual dining chains like Buffalo Wild Wings and Applebee's. So they're being smart if they're eating in.
Yep.
Unless they're going to someplace else to eat.
Well, what did it say? Does it say that they just don't like chains, or
it says they've got sales slumps, dozens of restaurant closings. Millennial consumers are more attracted than their elders to cooking at home, ordering delivery from restaurants and eating quickly in fast casual or quick serve restaurants. So, you know, at least the cooking and home part made it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it sounds like they just don't like chains necessarily.
Yeah. So they're looking to go to smaller places, quicker, etc. Okay. So, and they're killing beer. Oh my gosh.
So I'm a little bit surprised at that.
Okay. They are more interested in wine and spirits.
Wine and spirits. Interesting.
Okay. But they are drinking less alcohol than the older generation.
Well, that's a good fact, I suppose. But I think I did read that, and the decrease in beer consumption, it's only like 1%. So it wasn't really, it's not death.
You're right.
To the beer industry.
Penetration fell 1% from 2016 to 2017. Okay. But beer had already lost 10% of its market share to wine and hard liquor from 2006 to 2016. Okay, so, but that's still only 1% a year.
Right.
Okay. Eventually it adds up.
I suppose that's true.
And you get to zero.
That's true.
But I don't think beer will ever go to zero.
I doubt it.
No. Well, as long as I'm still alive.
As the millennials age, they might get into it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay. Napkins. They're killing napkins.
That makes sense.
They
Paper towels.
Yes. Are you a paper towel person?
I'm both.
Okay.
I like a good napkin.
Yeah.
Not the see-through napkins, the really hardy napkins.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And then, Jim, you have to tell me if I get in trouble for this one, but I think I can say this word on the air. Restaurant chains like Hooters.
I'm really not sad to hear that.
Down. They're going down. Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Okay. That's enough. Cereal. I find this funny. Breakfast cereal is inconvenient.
Yeah.
They're inconvenient because they have to clean up after eating it.
Oh.
Yep.
So they want things that can be eaten on the go, from yogurt to fast food breakfast sandwiches. Boy.
Cleaning up that cereal bowl.
And cereal is not messy.
No, it's quick
Unless
and
you make
easy.
it messy.
We eat it for supper at our house sometimes.
Yeah, unless you make it messy. No, this tugs at my heart. Golf.
Golf.
They're
Yep.
killing golf. I understand why, though.
It's too expensive.
It takes a lot of time. It's expensive.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time. And there's a lot more other things to do.
That's
than
true.
There used to be. Yep. Motorcycles. Yeah. Younger generation is adopting motorcycling at a far lower rate than prior generations.
Well, and that makes sense because there's less disposable income.
It's
So
expensive.
you can't really have.
You get a car or motorcycle.
Yep.
Well, if you're in North Dakota,
You have to have that
the
car.
motorcycle's a little bit of a luxury.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever owned a motorcycle?
No,
Okay.
I
had one
haven't.
when I was a kid.
I had a four-wheeler.
A couple.
Yeah.
I had a couple when I was a kid. No, not Harley. I had dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Okay, home ownership, it's hitting record lows among the millennials. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, now yogurt. They're killing yogurt too, especially light yogurt.
So that's interesting because the story just said that.
They don't want breakfast cereal, they want yogurt.
Yep, and now they're not eating
But they're
the yogurt.
killing yogurt too. Man, these are confused people. Well, they are psychologically scarred, just like the article said.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. Bars of soap. They're killing bar soap sales, fell 2.2% from 2014 to 2015. 48% of all consumers believe bar soaps are covered in germs after use, and that is particularly strong among consumers aged 18 to 24. Okay, I don't know.
I
It's
kind of
soap,
think,
isn't it?
that's what did your family have? You tend
Soap.
to use what your family has.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I don't,
They're killing
must be.
diamonds. Oh, that stands to reason too. Now this one, fabric softener. I can understand this one because I don't know if anybody knows what fabric softener is for. And do you really
smells
need
good.
it? It smells good, but that's it.
Well, yeah,
Isn't it?
I really, so a couple of things. Again, what we're seeing is the millennials have less disposable income. So you don't need fabric softener
Yeah.
to do your laundry.
Yeah. So save on fabric softener. I can buy a house someday.
Yep.
Or I can afford to rent the apartment because I'm not buying soap and fabric softener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
okay.
makes sense. Or because the cute teddy bear is not on the commercials anymore.
That's probably the biggest thing right there is the cute teddy bear.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Banks. Millennials distrust financial establishments and rarely visit physical banks. I believe that.
Wholeheartedly.
apps. I mean, I use an app for banking.
I do
and
too.
Stuff, so, and I do it at home.
Who's got time to go to the bank?
You got the mobile deposit now that's free.
Yep.
Banks used to charge for
You
that.
can
Now
pop
it's
money
free.
to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand that one. Okay.
And yet we have banks going up all the time
In Bismarck, anyway.
in Bismarck.
In Fargo, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably might not. Grand Forks. Anyway, department stores, Macy's and Sears. Well, yeah,
There's lots of stories on.
The argument about Amazon and killing every job in the world is out there.
It is.
Yeah. But there is a lot less retail jobs available because of this. Yeah. Designer handbags. Well, again, it comes down to money.
Absolutely. Every one of these
Yeah.
is really discussing the fact that there is less disposable income in households.
I mean, they talk about designer handbags, and it said widespread popularity is the kiss of death for trendy fashion brands. But, you know, the fact of the matter is people can't afford it, so they're not going to buy it.
$350 for a purse is.
Yeah. $350?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, boy. Okay. Gyms.
Yeah.
Oh, another gyms.
Oh, sorry.
With the
G.
With the G and the Y.
As in physical education.
Physical education, yes.
Phys ed,
Let's
man.
get physical.
Right.
All right. While millennials like to work out, they're ditching gyms in favor of boutique class-centric centers. So I don't know if that goes against the grain of cost.
It does.
Well, a lot of young women have ditched me over the years
Yeah,
as
okay.
well.
So
So,
you know how those gyms feel.
oh yeah, I do.
Okay,
I do.
all
I
right.
can relate.
Okay.
I
very
highly
good.
resemble that insinuation.
And this stands to reason. Home improvement stores like Home Depot and Lowe's are experiencing problems because
Less home
less
ownership.
home ownership. Okay.
Yeah.
Football. Okay, well, people don't want to watch football anymore, apparently, because of.
What are they
lots of
watching? Are
reasons.
they watching anything or
I think they're
soccer
watching
maybe? Or
Netflix and Game of Thrones.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay, and then oil. They don't like oil. Millennials don't like oil.
That's.
All right.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. So, and then the last thing I got here is there was a big mortgage fraud out in New Jersey. A guy who went through a lot. He created title companies and all this stuff. This is an example of why I'm glad I'm a dumb guy.
Okay.
Because I can't think of stuff like this. How to commit mortgage fraud, and I mean, this
Yeah.
guy went nuts. What was his name? Artis Hunter. He created title companies, homeowners insurance company. He provided notary stuff. He defrauded all these banks out of
Services?
services.
Wow.
He got them to originate loans, and then they'd sell them to him and disperse the funds to him as the title company, and then he'd take the money.
Isn't it amazing how
That
so many
is
people can apply
complex.
so much energy
Yeah.
to this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Whereas if they only played it clean, if they cleaned up their act
Yeah.
and worked just as hard, they'd be fine.
That's what
No,
I'm
you
glad.
wouldn't be able to afford a house.
I'm just glad I'm a dumb guy and I can't think of this stuff. You know, so that's
That
good.
is quite
Yeah.
the scheme.
People go through stuff. And there's been a whole bunch of these mortgage fraud cases. It's making a comeback. Mortgage fraud is.
And yet the regulations are
So anyway,
there.
Jen, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on.
for having me.
We'll have you
Always
on again.
a pleasure.
Yeah, have you on again. Jim, thanks for everything.
Likewise,
You know,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
And what are we going out on?
Smoking in the boys' room.
Oh,
Oh,
Brownsville
that's a good one.
Station. All right. Next week on the Dakota Housing Network.